Welcome to Central Moments again today. Just recently, have you just taken some moments to stop and just reflect on God's goodness to you? Maybe today would be a good day to do that if you haven't. Some of you may know that old hymn. It just says, count your blessings. Count them one by one. Count your many blessings. See what God has done. And sometimes we just need to regularly rehearse God's track record of faithfulness to us so that we find new courage, new faith for today and tomorrow and what we'll be facing there. This is what God does in the last chapter of Joshua. In Joshua 24 and verse 1, tells us that Joshua assembled all the tribes of Israel at Shechem. And he summoned the elders and the leaders and the judges and the officials of Israel. And they presented themselves before the Lord. So when we stop to reflect, that's what we do. We just present ourselves before the Lord. And we're not demanding anything here. And in fact, there's no real prayer requests here for the next number of verses. They're just reminders of God's faithfulness. They just literally, in the first half of the last chapter of Joshua, they just count their blessings. Joshua said to all the people, verse 2, "This is what the Lord, the God of Israel, says. Long ago your ancestors, including Terah, the father of Abraham and Nahor, lived beyond the Euphrates River and worshipped other gods." So it goes back centuries. And even Abraham was like an idol worshiper. "But I took your father Abraham from the land beyond the Euphrates and led him throughout Canaan," that's the promised land, where they now had taken possession under Joshua. I led him through Canaan and gave him many descendants. Verse 5, "Then I sent Moses and Aaron, and I afflicted the Egyptians by what I did there, and I brought you out." So he took Abraham, promised him what's today the land of Israel, the promised land. Centuries later, after Israel ended up in Egypt and were enslaved there, Moses and Aaron led them out, the great Exodus. And so he's reminding them of that. And then verse 8, "And I brought you to the land of the Amorites who lived east of the Jordan." That's after their 40 years of wilderness wandering. "They fought against you, but I gave them into your hands. I destroyed them before you, and you took possession of their land," right there on the east side of Jordan. Then verse 11, "Then you crossed the Jordan and came to Jericho." Remember Joshua fit the battle of Jericho. Remember that amazing battle where the walls of Jericho fell supernaturally. "The citizens of Jericho fought against you, as did also the Amorites, the Perizzites, the Canaanites, the Hittites, the Girgashites, the Hivites, and the Jebusites." Those 7 famous occupants of what we know as the Promised Land. And he said, "I gave them into your hands." Now this is going to provide the foundation of more that Joshua is going to say when he says, "So I want you to make a decision about who you're going to serve from here on in." And that'll come next. But first of all, simply the counting of blessings. Simply the saying, here is what God's done for you so far. And God doesn't change. We change sometimes. And our circumstances change. But God doesn't change. And so I want to invite you today to count your blessings. Just like he went back years and just started ticking off these amazing things that God had done to bring them to where they are. Even if you only gave your life to Christ last week, I believe God's been moving in your life in different ways. He's been positioning you. He's been preparing you for the moment where he could live in you. And maybe you've been serving Jesus for 70 years. But you certainly, although you've had some life reversals, maybe every prayer request hasn't been answered yet, but you've seen the faithfulness of God. I invite you to count your blessings today. Just pause, just present yourself before him and say, "Lord, you've been so good to me. Father, thank you for this. Thank you, you're always working. Thank you, whether we like what's happening to us or not, you're always working. Whether we've just met you or we've served you for years, you're always working. And thank you for this. And we praise you. And we just take hope today. And we just want to say thank you today for being the great God that you are. In your name, amen.